friends of the Warrior Next Door, you know what that theme song means. Another Air Raid edition. For those new to the program, an Air Raid edition is content that's a bit of a departure from what we normally feature on our show, which are first-hand personal accounts from people we've interviewed. In this case, we're going to feature content from Berten Smekens, our friend from across the pond, of Belgium, a fellow geophysicist, someone who spends his day looking for unexploded ordnance, and at times can find a lot more than that. So listen in. He's an amazing storyteller, and he's got a lot of really awesome experiences to share with us. So for our audience, this is Berten Smekens. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did, yes.
And you're living in Belgium. You're from Belgium.
That's right.
And we had a chance to meet through a mutual friend in the energy industry, Katarina Yared, who is a lot like you, speaks several different languages, a very worldly person, studied in Europe. And then I met her in Denver, Colorado as a coworker of mine. She heard about the podcast that Ryan Fairfield, my co-host here on this phone call, had started at the time. And she's like, you need to meet this guy named Berten, who I worked with some time ago. And she got us in touch using WhatsApp. I was like, oh, good, I'll just Facebook them. And she's like, no, you're not going to Facebook them. That's not how this works. So so we use WhatsApp to communicate. And over the years, you and I have had a chance. You have shared some photos, some images of some of these work sites, which we'll talk about more in a minute, which have been absolutely fascinating. And then Ryan and I had a chance to, I had a chance to visit with you a couple years ago.
2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's just you and I, and we just hung out, and you took me to all these amazing historical sites. And then Ryan and I spent the day with you and Shane just last winter, just last December, actually, for the 80th anniversary of the American Saint Nick Festival in Wiltz. We had a diversion and hung out with you. So I guess one of the things I just want to say right off the bat is, how could you tell people basically how you knew Katarina Yared? What were you doing in the United States? Here you are in Belgium now. Kind of what was your path to us being able to get to know you?
Well, Katarina, she did her PhD together with my wife at the University of Aachen. And then we went over to Houston. We used to work for ExxonMobil over there. And I think shortly after us, Katarina came over as well. And we just hung out in Houston, and I got to know her husband, and we went to shoot guns and stuff like that. He never shoot guns, and I had a couple. So
yeah. So what was your background? Were you a geologist? What was it that you guys all did?
Well, we're all geologists.
Okay.
Me, my wife, Katarina, and I worked as a geologist for ExxonMobil 4 years. Then we decided to move back over here in Belgium, and I spent 3 more years going back and forth to the Gulf of Mexico after that. Work on the rig.
And then, so about how long was it that you decided to stop working for the energy sector and start doing what you're doing now?
Well, after 3 years on the rig, it was about time to do something else. And at the time, there was a big project going on in the World War I front zone. They were going to lay a gas pipeline right through it. And I could start working for the geophysical survey along this the route of the gas pipeline. And I scanned with magnetometers. I started scanning portions of the trajectory through the front zone, and that's when you see all the stuff that's there. Not only on the geophysics, you can see all the metal objects that are buried in the ground, but sometimes even you would see them at the surface. So I'd be driving around on a 4-wheeler with pulling a cart with the detectors on it, mounted on it, and a GPS. And so you would just scan the whole area. And sometimes it would be on fields that were plowed recently, and you would actually see shells at the surface.
So for our American audience who we have no parallel to that here. Maybe ancient Confederate War battlefields, we might find a cannonball or a mini ball. I mean, you're doing this work in Belgium, and in Belgium during World War I, of course, the front lines extended to the very western edge of Belgium because most of it ended up being occupied for most of the war.
Yes.
During World War I, and then World War II, of course, it was also occupied by German forces. But could you share for the American audience how prevalent these unexploded ordnance is in this area? How commonly do people like you who live over there see and have to deal with unexploded ordnance from World War I or any war?
Well, there's some zones basically right on the front line, so where the trenches were. So the Germans opposite the Allies, so the Belgians, the French, the English, Canadians, Australians, right in that zone, they fought for 4 years, and it was pretty much a stalemate. The line shifted sometimes. There were some big battles during those 4 years, and in some places the line shifted. But basically, it boils down to a certain zone in West Flanders where they fought for 4 years, and they've been shooting at each other all the time. So in that zone, the people are very used to it, to seeing shells. They still come out of the ground, so artillery shells and other stuff. They still come out of the ground. People grew up with them. They're so used to them. You've seen pictures where they would stack them up. We've seen them, right? They stack them up in the telephone poles.
Yeah.
And then every so often the Army EOD guys, they just make a tour through the countryside, and then they just charge them in the back of their truck.
So like in the US, how we would maybe have recycling.
Yeah.
That's right.
And these are farmers for the most part that are plowing their fields and turning up some of these shells. And then they just carry these 100-year-old shells that are probably very fragile in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Spots and just leave them there to be picked up. Do they notify the government that they have these to be picked up, or they just?
Well, the procedure is nowadays you call the police, then the police comes and checks them, but they usually don't know what they are, like specifically what's inside. Like, do they have high explosives, or do they have some toxic chemicals or something? They can tell.
Yeah.
But anyways, they'll take a picture, and then they contact the EOD guys, and they come over. But there's so many that, like in this season, when they're like harvesting potatoes and stuff like that, there's so many that the Army EOD guys, they're overwhelmed. And some of these shells, they stay for weeks or even longer just by the side of the road. It's normal over there, but it's in a very limited zone. It's not for all of Belgium. But on the other hand, there are other battlefields in Belgium too, like for the Battle of the Bulge. It's not as bad over there because it was not two parties shooting at each other for 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the Battle of the Bulge lasted 6 weeks, and then the fighting was somewhere else, But still, they find unexploded ordnance in that area too.
Well,
but in the West Flanders area is the worst. And you were saying the farmer would carry them to the side of the road. Now, something happened, what you were saying, only 3 weeks ago. A farmer found a shell, but he didn't know it was a toxic shell. He picked it up and he held it against his belly, and he carried it to a place where the EOD guys could pick it up, but it was leaking. And he didn't know. And the guy got all burnt on his belly, on his legs.
We went to a place, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it properly, Pond Farm.
The pond farm, yeah.
The pond farm, which was just, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly either, just out, it was near, for our American audience, Ypres. How do you pronounce it?
Ypres, yeah.
Ypres. And
Yeah.
Ypres, of course, was I believe, the a sector for the British front, where
That's right.
they held that area for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying, to kind of stick to the World War I ordinance for just a minute before we start talking about the Battle of the Bulge, he was saying, and you were saying, that over time, through freeze thaw, frost action, that these things just kind of continue to emerge. And I think what he said was, they estimate in the area around his farm that, was it 30 million shells may have fallen or something like that? Millions and like 30% of those may have been duds because of the soft earth, and they're still there. Is that correct, Berten?
Yeah. That's the museum we went to. It's a farm. It's a pond farm. It's a name the British gave to the farm. Many of these farms that were there in World War I have some kind of name given to them by the soldiers. Mm. So in the sector of the British, it's going to be English names, such as the pond farm, because it had a little pond or something like that. And that is close to Passendale.
Yeah.
It's some of the very worst areas of the whole front line, where the Battle of Passendale happened in 1917. And yeah, they fired, like, I don't know, I don't think anybody has a real number on that, but for sure they fired like millions of shells at each other. And as you say, theoretically, 30% or something like that doesn't blow up. Yeah. But it may be more over there, because the area was completely shot to pieces, and it's like only craters, one crater next to the other. Yep. And it's clay earth. It's a clay, and when it rains on it, it gets so soft. So if you then get another shell that falls in a crater, it has probably a higher chance of not even detonating, because the soil is so soft.
Yes.
It'll just fall in the mud, and then nothing happens,
And a couple other things I want to kind of bring up, because this pond, to me, I think typifies the experience of a lot of farmers along the post World War I Western Front. What the owner of Pond Farm shared with me is probably something that a lot of farmers could tell you about.
Of course, yeah.
So one of the other things that I thought was interesting is some of the artifacts that they were able to collect there. You just mentioned this guy that held a toxic bomb, a gas bomb of some sort, against his belly and got burned. I was really surprised to learn and to see that how those were delivered in an artillery shell was just like a brown looking glass medicine bottle that they dropped in the shell. And I think you were saying, and he was saying, that those are very rare to find, those bottles, because they usually break. But because the soil was so soft, he had some there that basically they would put this poison liquid, this mustard gas, in this little glass medicine brown bottle in a shell, and then launch it, and then the glass would break with the shell and then spread out. Is that correct? Is that what I remember?
Yeah, that's one way they would do it. These toxic substances, they're in the shells in a variety of ways, sometimes in even like lead containers. Mm-hmm. And then usually they have around them, so inside the shell, so between the bottle and the wall of the shell, the inner wall of the shell, there's still explosives also.
Yes.
So they fall, they explode, and then the bottle gets broken, and the liquid or the gas comes out and just poisons everything around it. Another way they had was in the early stages. They would bring the poison gas in big gas bottles. Mm. And this is the Germans who did that at the very beginning. And they place them in their trench, and then they just waited for the right wind. So the wind would blow the gas to the trench of the other side. But this could sometimes backfire, right? If the wind turns on you. So that's when they went to incorporating the poison gas in artillery shells in a later stage.
And so one more thing about Pond Farm, and we'll talk about some other things as well. I can tell Ryan's itching. He's got some questions too. He's thinking, but I just kind of want to touch on a few more of these things before we move on. The other thing that I thought was really special about this is the early use of the British tanks, the old tanks, the trapezoidal looking, tanks from early in the war. And not only did they find pieces of that tanks in the field, but they actually created, they made one from blueprints that I think he said is the only operational replica of one of these tanks in Northern Europe. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think there's two.
Okay.
Yeah, he owns one of the two, and he made it from scratch. This guy, yeah.
Did he make it from finding parts, or he fabricated all of it?
He fabricated a lot of stuff, I think, but then I do think he also incorporated some actual parts.
Oh,
I think so. And not only that, but I thought he had access to the blueprints and actually used some of the blueprints to make sure that he could replicate it.
Yeah.
I mean, you go into this barn and it's sitting there and it looks for all the world like, one of these tanks that you see, Mark IVs, I think they were. I can't remember which one it was. Yeah. From these black and white films with these monsters creeping across the battlefield, and it's just sitting in there. And so I guess the reason I'm bringing up Pond Farm is we went there. It was more intimate. I had a chance to talk to, because of you, Berten, introducing me to this individual, someone whose family for generations has had to deal with the aftermath of the Great War, and they're still dealing with it today. It wasn't long after you were telling me. So for the American audience, the telephone poles that we saw, or that I saw in this part of the world, were not like the ones in the United States. What I saw looked like they were made of cement, and they were wide at the base, and they went up to a point on the top where the wires would attach, and there were holes. There were oval holes down that. And Berten, you were telling me, you're like, yeah, what the farmers will do is if they turn up one of these shells, is they'll just pick it up in the field and stuff it in one of these holes. And when the EOD goes by, they'll pick it up. And it wasn't an hour after you said that, you're like, look, and we pulled over and took a picture of maybe a 75 millimeter shell stuck in one of those holes. How crazy? How do you, I mean, do you guys just get used to living in a world where there's explosives everywhere? What's that like, living in that, in that area?
These people in that area, they're born with it. They're used to it. And as a matter of fact, that I think that's how it all started for me. I went over there when I was like 12, because I had a friend whose family was from that area, and they had a farm, and we could spend, me and my friend, we were invited to spend 2 weeks or so on the farm. And when we got there, it appeared that they had, in between two farm buildings, they had a little area reserved for all the munitions. And there's this pile of shells, hand grenades, bullets, stuff like that. And there's two 12-year-old kids, and we could just
play on it.
Yeah, we could just touch it, do whatever we want with it. And there was like, I remember there's like in these bullets from World War One, what they usually use, the powder, it's cordite. You know what's cordite? It looks like spaghetti, but it's powder. In the shape of spaghetti. But you could take out those spaghettis and you could light them on one side, and they would deflagrate like that.
you guys were opening up World War I bullets full of spaghetti gunpowder and touching it off and playing with that.
That's right.
As a
matter of fact, there's some other thing, some similar thing. I found when we were there. So as 12 years old, I found a fuse, and it still had the booster on it. Oh. So that's a little charge that makes the rest of the shell explode. But I didn't know at the time the fuse hadn't exploded because the booster's still on there. and the booster was partially like plowed open, so the plow probably touched it, and like the metal container around the charge was gone. So in place in a certain area, so I could actually see the stuff inside, and it was like yellow, canary yellow. So the little yellow bird,
Yes.
that type of yellow. And so I took the thing home, and it sat in my parents' house for like probably 15 years. And then it actually sat in the attic, where it gets really hot during the summer.
Yep.
And then when I reached the age of like 24, 25, I started reading more about explosives and stuff, and I found out that it's probably not a good idea to keep that stuff in a place where it gets really hot, and well, we got rid of it. But also when we were still kids, we would actually scrape the yellow stuff out of there with a knife, and then make like a little pile of it and light it. And then I found out later that the yellow stuff is picric acid.
Oh my gosh.
Picric is really well, it's dangerous. It can explode. It's a sensitive explosives, but it's also carcinogenic.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So there you have really, kids playing with carcinogenic explosives from World War One.
Berten, I was just going to say, in the U.S., have you heard of the term helicopter parent? No. Okay, a helicopter parent is a parent that paves the way for its child. It won't put them in any danger at all. If the child's going to go down steps, the parent's right there, ready to catch them if they fall, hovering around them, always being a safety, a fallback for the child. Okay.
Right.
And then I hear this.
Hey, kids, go play out in the farm for a while.
Yeah. I found some new stuff. Go check behind the barn. I mean, I think it's amazing. Let me ask you this. So, on a yearly basis, on average, how many times do you hear about shells exploding, accidents happening from these 100-year-old or 80-year-old shells?
Well, on average, there's a serious accident once or twice a year. And we already,
wow.
Oh yeah, I already talked about the farmer who put the shell close to his body. But maybe only last week, not this week, but week prior, there was another accident with a collector, as we call them. So there's in that area, there's lots of people. They just pick up the stuff and keep it in their house. They keep live shells in their house and stuff like that. So this guy apparently in his garden shed, he was fiddling around with a 17-centimeter shell, and it went off.
Oh my gosh.
You know what? The guy survived. I don't know how, but he survived.
Wow.
But he's seriously injured, is what we heard.
It must not have fully detonated or something,
Probably, because I saw one of the EOD guys on a picture in the newspaper, and he's carrying fragments of the shell, and it looks like it didn't fully explode. It's like the fragments are big, not like shards, like really sharp, but like more like, a deflagration, we would call it. It's not a real explosion. These things are over 100 years old. So,
I mean, one or two explosions per year, we can all agree is too many. But I'm surprised it's not more than that. That's why I was surprised earlier when you said that. I would think there'd be 15 or 20 or more.
But there is. I had the same question that you had when Berten and I were driving around. And Berten, what I thought you said was, yeah, we get, one or two casualties per year. But I thought what you told me is the number would be a lot higher, except for there's a bunch more explosions that occur in the farm implements as they're dragging behind it. That they're touching stuff off all the time, but because it's far enough behind them, it doesn't injure anybody. Did I hear that correctly?
Well, usually when there's accidents like that, usually the people involved get away with minor injuries or even not injured. Luckily,
Mm-hmm.
it even amazes me. I mean, how well sometimes these people get away with that, and also there's probably going to be incidents that nobody talks about. They don't get out in the
Yep.
media or anything. So there's probably more than one or two per year, but we
Yeah.
don't even hear about them. I hear about them when I'm in the area
Mm-hmm.
because I talk to people and then they say, "Oh, over there on that farm, the farmer he touched the shell and it exploded, but he got away." So nobody talks about it. And I actually I witnessed an incident. Well, I wasn't there, but I was involved. Another incident like that, where they were scraping away a road with an excavator. So they're scraping away the tarmac, you know, and underneath the tarmac, there's like the foundation of the road. So the guy is scraping away that foundation. It's usually like a gravel or something. And when he scrapes away the gravel, so we're talking like 20 centimeters under the road, all of a sudden he hears poof, and he sees a big yellow cloud.
Mm.
And then they go check, and the whole area is like in a 3 meter radius. It's all yellow, and it was that yellow stuff that I was talking about.
Ah,
Big,
that acid. Yeah.
and what happened? There was a shell, apparently a 25 centimeter shell. So, and when I say 25 centimeter, that's the caliber.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a
It's a
really
big
big
shell,
shell.
like a 10-inch
Yeah,
shell. Yeah.
and it was under the road with the fuse up, and the guy hit it with his excavator. He hit the fuse went off, the booster went off, but the main charge didn't.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
the big shell, it kind of burst open, and all the picric got spread out. And then we got involved. The company I regularly work for, they sent somebody over there to check if there was more. And there were 7 more shells like that standing upright in a line.
My.
So these are German shells, so 25 centimeters. They placed them there as some kind of a land, like a mine.
Wow.
And so these things had been sitting there for over 100 years under a road.
Just waiting for someone to drive over them to.
But
So I want to understand you correctly. Did the Germans place them there back in 1918 or whatever
something like that.
intentionally
Yes.
to get someone to drive over it to hit the fuse because it was up and blow up? Basically, like you said, like a landmine,
Like an IED.
Yeah, like an IED. Yeah.
Yeah. And those things they were left there after World War I, and they just pour a road over it, and they sat for 100 years underneath that road, and people driving over it all the time.
So that I also want to clarify for our audience. So after you left the energy sector and you started doing, this back home in Belgium where you and your wife are from, what could you just describe more specifically what you do, what your role is, how you're brought into these projects?
Well, I'm independent,
Mm-hmm.
so I work for multiple clients. I started out doing the survey, so driving around scanning with the magnetometer array, and this gradually evolved into actually digging. And I started out small, so the smaller stuff in the World War I front area. Well, you can find big stuff there too, but then during COVID, one of my clients, they are clearing the beach, and that's where you find the really big stuff. And they had three teams with English former EOD guys working. So these are, ex-army guys working there to clear these unexploded ordnances. And from one day to the other, France decided they're going to close their border. So this is during the onset of COVID, right? And those English guys, they just packed and left during the middle of the night before the border was closed, you know? And so the next day I find myself on the beach, working with the big boys, you know?
Oh,
And
wow.
that's
So because of COVID shutting down the borders and preventing these teams from working, basically they're like, okay, you're it. You're gonna be the guy helping us do this then.
Because the way the work goes on the beach, there's one guy on the ground with a portable magnetometer, and he's working together with one guy in a big excavator, a 35-ton excavator. So my client, he had three 35-ton excavators there with a guy. And all of a sudden, these guys, they're gone. And so he has his three excavators with no people.
Yeah.
So that was the opportunity to shift to the bigger stuff.
So you got to drive a 35-ton excavator.
Well, I did, but I'm usually the guy on the ground with the portable magnetometer, you know.
Okay, yeah.
And that's where you find the really big stuff, because on the beach, that's where all the World War II obstacles from the Atlantic Wall are still there, and you can find all kinds of other stuff, airplane bombs, shipwrecks, parts of airplanes, stuff like that. And as the closer you move to where the front of World War I was, then you start finding World War I stuff. Big shells from World War I, toxic shells. It's all still there.
What's the oldest ordnance you've ever found? Have you found like cannonballs and stuff from the Napoleonic era? Could you really?
Oh yeah. You still find cannonballs. Yeah.
Wow.
And then there's one area on our coast. We don't know why, but there was a lot of pre-World War I shells, 21 centimeter, and they're called Bleimantel in German, because they're German, and they're from 1896.
Wow.
And and they're actually the predecessors to modern artillery shells, because they don't have a copper driving band around them. You know what I'm talking about? The driving band is what is in contact with the inside of the barrel. So usually on a modern shell, like starting from World War I, you'd see on the bottom, you'd see a copper band around them, which is basically what's in contact. It provides it's soft, so it can be deformed on the inside of the barrel, because you have rifling, just like in a rifle, and so it'll be in contact with the rifling, and so the shell will get a rotation while it's fired, just like a bullet in a rifle. But you don't want to do that with steel. It has to be a softer material, so it's usually copper. But prior to that, there were these predecessor shells, and they had a lead mantle, a lead jacket, if you will. So Bleimantel means lead jacket. So there's like a big sheet of lead around them, and that's what it's in contact with the barrel. And we would find quite a lot of those in a certain area. We don't know why. Why are they even there?
One of the things I've kind of marveled at as we've been over there the last few times is, and I didn't even realize the history before World War I that you're talking about now. But you think about that part of Europe, with Belgium. You're right. 4 years of World War I where they're fighting back and forth in one confined area. Then you had in World War II, Germany pushing through in 1940, and then the Allies, then they retreated and the Allies pushed them back. And then the Germans pushed back across with the Battle of the Bulge. And then we pushed them back again. So 4 times during World War II, that area was switched back and forth between the Allies and the Axis. And it was just been fought over for so long.
Oh yeah.
Stuff everywhere.
And then obviously it was bombed from the air.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So, like the village that you live in and grew up in, I think you told me, I could be wrong, that you're living in you're raising your children right now in the area that you grew up in. Is that correct?
No, no, no.
Okay.
No. I grew up in Flanders, so where they speak Flemish,
Yep.
not too far from Antwerp.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
But I think you
And,
said that the village that you're living in now actually experienced some of this troop movement back and forth. Is that correct? Are there
well,
is there any like damage or anything left behind from these
oh yeah,
battles in your village?
yes.
Yeah.
During World War One, it got kind of spared, but in our general area, there's some villages and cities that were completely burned to the ground, and they would like execute like tens or hundreds of people. This is World War One.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Uh, and then during World War Two, in 1940, we are not too far away from the city of Liège. And prior to World War II, they built fortresses around. Well, there were fortresses from World War One who were around the city. They upgraded them and they added 4 modern fortresses, such as Eben Emal, which may ring a bell. It's
Mm-hmm.
quite famous. And there's one, the second modern fort in the row, is about 3 kilometers from the house.
Wow.
And oh yeah, and if you go there, there's still lots of stuff to see. I mean, there's an anti-tank wall of the fortress, and it's like riddled with bullet holes. Or
Oh
you
my gosh.
go in the cemetery, and you'll see some of the older graves. There, they have bullet impacts,
That
stuff
was
like
one of the
that.
things that was amazing to me, and it's just because we don't have an analog like you guys do, a recent analog. And we have the Civil War over here, but that occurred largely on the east side of the Mississippi, you know. Um, but when as Tony and I were walking around in some of these towns, and you'd see like you showed us, Burton, that roadside memorial that was dedicated to some boys that were killed in that town in World War One.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's where you found that where the guy showed you the 20 millimeter cannon shell that was found in the gravel there. But
right.
that memorial, which had been there since World War One, I presume, has
Mm-hmm.
bullet holes all over it from the fighting that occurred, 25 years later.
That's right. Yeah.
We did a hike
It's
along just really quick. We did a hike around the Call Trail in Nahurtgen the last time we were there, and there was a World War monument at the trailhead to honor the fallen in that area, and it was pockmarked with bullets that probably came from the fighting during
after.
World War II. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
It's if you keep your eyes open, there's traces everywhere around
yeah,
here.
yeah, and
And if you read about it, there's so many things. It's all over the place.
well,
Like I was reading only last week. I sent that to you, Tony. I was reading about a B-17. It crashed some 10 minutes from my
yeah.
house. From a B-17 named a Pickle Puss. Supposedly, the pilot named it after his girlfriend.
It's even better.
I'm not sure. But anyways, this is a B-17 from the 100 bomb group.
Oh, really?
And I never really thought about it until Masters of the Air came along, obviously. And then they crashed on August 17, 1943, which
It's
they
early in early in the
early.
American Air War.
But this is the day they went to Regensburg.
Ah,
It's
Really?
it's like one of the worst missions they ever had because in terms of losses. So these guys crashed there, and there's a little monument. It has their names and it has one picture. But then only last week I was reading about it, and some of the veterans that you guys interviewed, Lucky Luckadoo,
Yep.
and also
Gerald Gentis.
Gerald Gentis, I believe.
Yeah, from Mr. Lucky.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
They talk about this one incident where supposedly not, but this was apparently a rumor, where a B-17 lowered his wheels in as a sign of I'm giving up.
Yep.
And apparently a German fighter came to escort, and then because, well, this was the rumor, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm reading about this particular B-17 that crashed 10 minutes from my house. And apparently that's the one who's supposed to do this thing. You can read it. Did I not send you the link?
You did, but I didn't make that link. And most of what I sent Ryan had to do, just for our audience, we featured Gerald Gentis, who was B-17, was B-24 B-17?
B-17 Toggler.
B-17.
He was a B-17 G guy. He was an advocate for it.
So. And he was with Mr. Lucky? Which one was flying Mr. Lucky?
Yeah,
I think Gerald Gentis was.
It was
it's just Gerald Gentis. So Berten heard that episode of the podcast, and I sent it to you. You sent it to me. Pictures of civilians standing on the tail with the tail number of Mr. Lucky.
That's great.
And for our audience, that's the first time we saw that.
Is that right?
We had no idea that Gerald Gentis's plane had photos. You sent me two, had photos of it after it had crashed. I mean, we're definitely going to put that on our website. It was unfreaking believable. And now you're talking about another incident that was mentioned in Masters of the Air and our interview with Lucky Luckadoo. And just to kind of recap it a little bit more, Bert, because I want to make sure I understand this correctly. So the rumor was the Bloody 100th was the bad luck bomb group, and that they took more casualties than other bomb groups because the Germans were targeting them because of something that they purportedly did early in the war, where one of their bombers was really beat up, and the sign for, hey, I give up, don't shoot me anymore, I'll land somewhere, is to drop your landing gear. And when this German fighter rolled in to escort it into to land to become POWs, they shot the German fighter out of the sky. Or shot at him, and word of that got around to the German fighters. And so anytime they saw the 100th bomb group, they went after him. Now, there has been some controversy after the war about whether or not that actually happened. Right. And I think what you're telling me is Pickle Puss may have been the bomber that they're talking about. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what it said. I found it on a website of the Museum of the American Air War or something like that. I sent you the link. And it actually has a paragraph about Pickle Puss, and it says they had only I believe one engine left. They lowered the wheels, and then when the German fighters came, all of a sudden one engine started working again, and they pulled the wheels back up and they fired. But then they were shot down anyways.
Lucky told us when we interviewed him that wasn't
that
true.
Never happened. He said that, yeah.
But you got to here's the thing that's so amazing about history, though. It would benefit the 100th bomb group for that not to be true. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be known as the bomb group that didn't play by the rules and then suffered dearly for it. Mm-hmm. So if that happened, it would benefit the leadership of the bomb group to diminish that story. Right? Because you don't want to be known as that. Now, the other alternative is it didn't happen. It was just a complete fabrication. But I think what Berten's saying with what he sent us is there does seem to be some evidence for that could have happened with this plane. And I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me at all that that bomb group early in a war, that if that did happen, to suppress that. I mean, do you want to be known as the bomb group or the fighter pilot that shoots at enemy parachutes? I mean, it happened, right?
Right. Yeah.
Both sides did that, but no one brags about those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And it was also, it sounds like if that's the way it happened,
right,
there was a gray area there where the guy was like, yes. Oh crap, I don't want to give up now.
Yes.
And they pulled their wheels back up, and then it looks like a sucker punch.
Totally. And that's the other part about history is our understanding about some of these events is almost never just black and white.
No.
There's always little pieces of things that are going on that cause it to be a gray area. Like you said, they may not have had any intention at all of doing what would have been seen as kind of a dishonorable, non-chivalrous thing, but given the circumstances, that's just what happened.
So Berten, is there more excavation that could be done at that site, do you think, or has it been thoroughly scoured?
That's a good question. A couple of years ago, I took my metal detector and I went.
You're so lucky.
Behind the monument, there's just a grassland, and I just scanned it. But I was expecting to find aluminum, but I only find some, recent crap.
Really? So you didn't find anything?
I didn't find any. But then again, the monument, does it stand at exactly the place where it crashed? Exactly. It's not for sure. And also what I understand is the plane broke up in midair. So where did all the pieces go? I mean, it can be spread over.
Many times monuments are meant to be roadside monuments so that people can see them and they pull off and they have a reflective thought about what happened there. But you're right, it could have been a half a kilometer away where the actual crash happened out in some field. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And then one other thing I wanted to, before I forget, I saw this article on the site of the National World War II Museum. And there's an article about the Bloody 100. And that's where it relates this story about the wheels up. So it's not just any source.
Gotcha. Well said. Yeah,
totally. And that's an American website that honors the Americans generally. I'm going to have to go make sure that we have a link to that as well. But it, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that had occurred. And it also could be that it was just an apocryphal story. We don't know, but it does sound like there could be some legs to it, especially early in a war when people were still very much trying to figure out the rules of the game. They were shocked by the horrors of combat, I don't know. And so speaking of that, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and it seems to be a bit of a theme with certain people, in these parts of Europe where these battles took place, is there's a lot of locals who try to honor the men who died over there by trying to properly identify MIA, missing in action, whenever they can, when they have their metal detectors out. I think you said that there's a group of people. I think you said it this way. You correct me if I'm wrong. I know you'll correct me. That there's one group that are kind of out there to just get artifacts and sell them. And there's another group that seems to be out there to try to find men who were MIA and try to identify them and bring them back home to their families. Is that capture what I thought I heard?
There's, like you say, there's people who just do it to make money. They try to sell stuff that they found. But there used to be, I don't know if they're still active, but in the 80s and the 90s, in this area, there used to be a group of people, and there's actually a really good book written about them, The Dead of Winter, it's called. And this is not fiction, this book. The stuff that's in there, it's what really happened. And these guys, they had connections in the States with like a group of veterans from the 99th Infantry. And the 99th Infantry fought east of Elsenborn in the Ardennes on the Belgian-German border, where the Dragon's Teeth are, that you guys visited. And there's a big forest there. And I believe there's some 30 some odd soldiers still missing in that forest. And those guys, they were just in the beginning, if you read the book, they were just regular metal detector searchers, and then they start coming across soldiers, and that's when it kind of took off, and they got in contact with with people in the States that had access to records, and then they actually tried to actively find MIAs in that forest, which they managed to do. They found at least three that they were actively searching. You gotta think about it. Eh? It's a forest, and you're basing yourself off some small unit report, like after action report that says we buried three guys and we couldn't retrieve them, and it's somewhere, it's by a river or by a road or by a CP foxhole or something like that. You it's not easy to go find, but they managed to find these guys. And if you read that book, it describes the last time when they found these three guys together. They were buried in Henri Chapelle. I believe this is in 2004. And I have heard from people who were in the village in 2004. I didn't live here yet in 2004. I only came 2005, unfortunately. But apparently there was a big ceremony in the church, and people who were there, they say the village was too small. So many people came inside the church and outside.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing that I wasn't prepared for when I had a chance to go over there and hang out with you and other people, other tours, other groups, and then some stuff that Ryan and I have done on our own. Is that there is a living memory of this war, of World War II. I don't mean a living memory. What I mean by that is, let me rephrase that. There are young people who were not alive when this happened who still honor American, British, Canadian war dead in that area. People they never knew, people that they never saw fight. Like in the United States, it feels like unless you experienced it, it's just history. People dismiss it. They forget. We seem to forget our history very quickly, or just not really honor it. But I've been impressed. I won't speak for Ryan, but I think he feels the same way at how the people over there, continue to honor the men who died over there in this way. I found it really endearing, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, we were at the American Cemetery in Normandy, and we learned there that the local schools every year will go to the cemetery, and the kids will adopt a soldier, adopt a grave, and they will take that name and they'll do research on it and do a report on that at the end of the year. They'll go to that grave and they'll go to all the ones they adopted and say, this is, Private Tony Miller, who died on this day. He came from this city. His parents were named this. He had a wife and a child at home that that were orphaned. I mean, it was really touching to me. I thought that was cool.
And the most impactful part of that is they'll take that video that they presented at the grave of the soldier and they send it to the family in the U.S. So the family in the U.S. knows that their son or grandson or whoever, or great uncle or whatever, is still being remembered and still being appreciated and still being honored. And that means the world
very nice
to people. It is very nice. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
So
before I forget, the captain, the pilot of B-17 Pickle Puss, is Captain Robert Knox. And I've only last week I found out he's at Henri Chapelle.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm taking Shane there tomorrow morning. We have built this habit after you guys visited of doing some research on certain soldiers that are there. And then, if Shane found out something, he takes me there and he talks about the guy or multiple guys at the time. And I do the same.
So
and
I'll just
I have two for him tomorrow. So Captain Robert Knox. And there's another soldier that I found out who was murdered at Bonnet Crossroads, so in the Malmedy massacre. And what is special about him, when the U.S. Army retook the crossroads and they came upon the bodies, they started an investigation, and they gave each body a number. And then there's pictures of the bodies, and you can see the numbers. And this guy is number 21, and you can see where he is on the site. We know the site very well, and there's houses that were there at the time that are still there today, so you can just tell kind of exactly where he was.
Okay, so let me understand this. This is Robert Knox you're talking about.
No, this is Robert Knox is the pilot.
Right. Okay, that's where I was trying to
Picklepuss. And then I have another soldier.
I understand. I follow you now.
Pull up his name. Because what we're also doing is we're kind of making like a 1 or 2 pager about these soldiers. So the next time we take somebody to Henri Chapelle, we also have something to show,
So Berten, I mean, Henri Chapelle Cemetery is how far from your home?
It's about let's say 5-minute drive.
5-minute drive. When we were there over last fall, after Thanksgiving, and Berten took us around. You brought your friend Shane with you, who's an American.
That's right.
And a veteran. And Berten and Shane took us around and showed us all these fantastic sites. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to have Berten on, is there's a lot of stuff that, Berten's boots on the ground guy out there living over there. And we want to be able to feature some of these stories regularly for our listeners. And so the Wereth 11, for instance, you took us to that spot, very impressive location. The Meyer Road location with what's the guy's name? I'm sorry,
Eric
Fisher. Fisher Wood, right? Yeah. There are all these great stories that I weren't even aware of until that tour.
And until you go there and are honored with being able to spend some time with people who have some knowledge of the area, like Berten and Shane. There's some of the things, Berten high level, that I got out of that I don't think I would ever have gotten from any book that I could read. A bunch of things. Number one is the scrappers. When all these battles were over and there was all this battlefield material everywhere, you drive through these towns today, and hatches, covers, windows, and stuff are all made up from pieces of armor and hatches and turrets and stuff that were taken down. That there's all of these attics full of weapons and memorabilia that people just kind of kept and put it in their attic after the war.
Right.
That the massacres that occurred by the Germans, they didn't just happen in Malmedy, and they just didn't happen in World War II. They happened in World War I. They happened in World War II. They happened all over the place. And that you guys were really opened my eyes to the extent that the Germans did those sort of things.
You haven't seen nothing yet, because because after you guys visited, Shane and we went on a 2-day tour with an author, a guy from Holland. His name is Timo Worst, and he wrote he wrote 2 books about the SS, the first SS in the Ardennes and their massacres. And that I knew some of it, but no details. But those 2 days just blew me away. I mean, the stuff that he had about the atrocities committed by these first SS units on the local civilians, it's I mean, it's almost to a level like you do that like 2 days, and then you have to. It's too much.
It was
You
like
have
traumatic.
to,
It sounded like.
yeah, you have to like, put it aside. Don't think about it because it's intense. I mean, there's some villages where they would like they put like 35 people in a barn, and they set up a machine gun, and they just shot everybody inside. And there's like one or two survivors, and then they didn't even try to finish them off. They just threw some hay inside and set it on fire. And even still, then those people survived to tell the
Oh my
tale.
God.
Yeah,
Unbelievable. I
and
mean,
and that's in several villages. It's not too far from the Malmedy. It's in the pretty much in the Malmedy area. And there's more massacres also involving U.S. soldiers that are pretty much not known.
yeah.
Um, and there, it's horrific, man. If you learn about some of the details, uh, there's
Uh,
one place. It's like I would like to take you guys there. It's a castle, and it used to be an orphanage. Well, it's kind of. Some sources say it was an orphanage. Another source say it had children whose parents were like deported, so pretty much orphan
yeah.
children,
Yeah.
like 40 somewhat children, and they were staying in that castle. And then Kampfgruppe Hansen came and made it their HQ, and they told all the children and there's some women with the children to take care of them, so they had to go in the basement, and they spent like 11 days or something like that in the basement while there was fighting going on above them. And they also used part of the basement as an aid station, so they brought in wounded soldiers, and so these children stayed in there for days. And you can go there today, and the castle is abandoned, so you can just walk in, and it has the scars are everywhere. Inside the rooms, there are bullet impacts. There's a hole of a shell that came through the roof, and it splattered the opposite wall with fragments. It's like splattered. And you can just walk in there, and you can actually go in the basement. And man, it's something else. It's an experience. And what also happened there's the line of the 82nd Airborne, the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, had a position really close to the castle. And apparently there's, again, different sources, 11 or 13 paratroopers who were captured, and they were found dead behind the castle after the war, probably executed. And some of these guys are also at Henri Chapelle.
It's
So
it just spending that day with you when Ryan and I and you shared with us not these because these weren't known then, but the variety of other massacre sites. There's a picture of an alley that you said was kind of creepy, where you have a then and now photo of people who were shot and massacred. The extent of it. As an American, the only one I ever heard of was Normandy. As far as I know from what you see in our popular literature, is we landed on D-Day, we made a big push, we had to stop, we got pushed back at D-Day, there was a massacre at Malmedy, it made us mad, then we went into Germany. All these other things that you're talking about are not really touched on. And I wonder if it was kind of deliberate on the Allies' part. I think post-war, World War II, we were trying to make nicey nice, to make sure that the communists, the Iron Wall didn't make it any further west. I wonder how many of these things were just kind of like, let's just not bring it up. Let's not talk about these things. I don't know. I think Ryan's got something to say. I heard him take a breath.
Well, I was just going to say, I think part of it could be the fact that when the Malmedy massacre occurred,
Yeah.
it was directly on U.S. troops.
Yeah.
All the other massacres were townsfolk And, for the most part, a lot of them were.
What about the Wereth 11?
Well,
Yeah,
but they were
similar.
African-American soldiers.
But that's my point.
Well,
yeah.
Well, my point though is just that you were saying that we never heard about a lot of the other stuff. I just think that maybe the American government or the military, they're like, well, this is essentially a faceless people because they don't have a government in effect anymore.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming. Like, it was massacres everywhere. But when they do it to us, to our guys, and it violates the terms of what we think we're playing by. I mean, I don't know if that's why that rose to the surface.
I hear what you're saying. It makes perfect sense. I'd be willing to bet, and based on some of the things that I've been hearing from Berten, that there probably were more American soldiers who were massacred that you don't hear about.
But also, on the other hand, there were some massacres committed by American soldiers as well.
Absolutely.
Yep, and I heard one very well. Actually, I saw the evidence. There is one guy that I know who has a museum. It's in the Ardennes, so in the Bulge area. The guy has a museum, a private museum in his house. And how I found him? He has a 57 millimeter anti-tank gun in his front yard. So, and I had a friend of mine from Houston who was going to visit, and I was going to take him on we were going to spend 4 days out in the battlefield. I'm going to take him on a tour. And I knew of this guy with the anti-tank gun in his front yard. And I had heard that he has a little museum in his garden shed with fine stuff that he found with his metal detector. So I drove over there and I was going to ask him, hey, can I visit your shed just to see the stuff that you find with your metal detector and also take a look at your anti-tank gun? So I explained to him, next week I'll be in the area with a friend of mine. Oh, and your friend, where is he from? And I said, he's from Houston. He's an American. And he said, he's an American. Then I'll show you my real museum.
Oh.
And he invited us into his house, and we went up into the attic. And I kid you not, he had probably every single small arm, like pistols, rifles. I believe he had a mortar tube and stuff, from both sides. He had it all in his attic.
Nice.
Yeah. And he also had a story that he found a German soldier, and there were pictures. He had pictures. So first he found the helmet. He detected the helmet. When he took the helmet out of the ground, the skull was still in there.
Oh.
When he took the skull out of the helmet, there was a patch of a tanker, a tank crewman, stuffed between the skull and the helmet. So the guy hid it. When they took out the rest, when they dug up the rest of the skeleton, the hands were tied behind the back with metal wire.
Mm.
And the guy actually had a bullet hole in the skull. And he had pictures of that. So that was a tank crew who was executed.
Yeah.
So it happened from the other side as well.
I want to ask, and I'm not saying that we didn't behave in the worst way possible also, but I'm wondering, so it was American on German soldier atrocity in that regard. And what I worry about is if we were going around executing villagers like the SS did. Okay.
No.
And I think there was a lot of retribution that's been documented that happened because of the Malmedy event. People are like, all right, it's on now. No more prisoners from the Germans.
Yes.
Once Malmedy happened,
exactly.
It got around like wildfire. And then there was the Wereth 11, which was probably not widely known
or
swept under the rug either way. Anyway, so that's just my thought.
But the Malmedy massacre was the biggest one.
Yeah.
Before I forget, I was going to tell you guys the name of the soldier.
Yeah.
His name is Halsey J. Miller.
Okay.
And he was in the 285th Field Artillery Observer Battalion. So that's the unit that was ambushed at the Bonnier Crossroads.
Okay.
Near Malmedy. Yeah. Before I forget. Now, another story about this guy with the museum.
Yeah.
So when I went there first time, he had this duffel bag, U.S. Army duffel bag, and it has name on it and the service number of the soldier. And he would tell the story that the soldier left behind his stuff in a farm, then went to fight on the front, and he was never seen after. So he's an MIA. I accepted the story at the time. Now, I believe 3 years ago, no, it's going to be 2 years ago. We went there on the day the massacre happened. So me and Shane, we went there. We visited the massacre site, and this was on December 17th. So the day the massacre happened. And I prepared that we could visit the guy with the museum in his attic because Shane hadn't seen it. So we visit the museum, and then we see the duffel bag. And he tells the same story again about the soldier. His name is Jesse Ellico. But Shane, he likes to do a lot of research. And nowadays you can find a lot of stuff on the internet. 10 years ago, when I went there for the first time, you couldn't. Now you have sites like findthegrave.com, which is a huge resource.
Yep.
You just type in the name and you find him. And Shane found out that Jesse Ellico is at Henri Chapelle.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think we visited with you guys.
We did. And in fact, that was one of the things that I wanted to ask you is when we visited Henri Chapelle, we had a chance to go to Eric Fisher Wood's gravesite, check out some of the MIAs there. You also told us tell us a story about what you did during COVID when things were shut down to honor the troops there with your son.
You couldn't go into the cemetery anymore. And what they do every year is a big during the Memorial Day weekend, there's also every year there's a really big ceremony. So there's you get high up officers from the U.S. Army, you get U.S. ambassador, you get all kind of you get high up people from the Belgian government and stuff like that, and then obviously lots of local people visit, and then they always do something. The children also will read letters from soldiers who are buried there, things like that. So it's really big. And that year I believe it was 21. I'm not sure. It may have been 20. They didn't do a ceremony for our safety, which I had my doubts about. You may cut that out if you want to. Anyways, I went on Memorial Day with my two sons who were American citizens. They were born in Houston, and I had a big American flag, and we held up the flag by the side of the road there. You've seen the way it's laid out, the cemetery. You have big a monument where you walk through, and then it's in front of a main road. And we stood there, and I played taps on my car's speakers as loud as I could, maximum volume.
So what makes you do this, Berten? What drives you to try to understand history, to try to I know you have an interest in the people who help identify MIAs. Why are you drawn to that?
Well, as you know, these guys, I believe there's 8,992 who are there, and they are there because they brought the ultimate sacrifice to rid us of the Germans. And I mean, it's important because that was not a good time when the Germans were over here.
As an American, I didn't fully appreciate how sincere the countries that were ultimately, liberated after being occupied for several years during World War II, how much they tried to honor the memory of the men who did that. I didn't really think that was real. I thought it was just like a news thing that you'd read about, on the anniversary of D-Day. It wasn't until I went there, and not just meeting you, Berten, but a whole host of scores of people from all over that region in a variety of different capacities, that I started realizing that there is a real and sincere appreciation for that. And when I asked you about that when I was there, it's like, why do people care about that so much? You told me something I'll never forget. You said Americans don't know what it's like to have their freedom taken away. And when you have that happen to you, it leaves a mark on your society, on the people, the civilians. I didn't appreciate that, Berten, until you said that.
I know I'd like to, I know Shane has done a lot of research on the Wereth 11.
Yeah.
I'd like to do just a dedicated episode to that. And so maybe what we could do is next time we have Shane on, we kind of get to know Shane, introduce people to Shane and you guys, and talk about how you guys know each other and where you've been and stuff. And then we can maybe after that start doing some regular stuff where we pick a topic each time, and you can choose a topic if you like. You like, hey, I got something really great, and we'll just wing it, see how it goes. And Tony and I'll gee whiz it the whole time, and we get to listen and have fun with this, So
yeah, we come across a lot of interesting stuff when we do just some research, I mean, superficial research, basically. Well, Shane, he tends to dive a
little
deeper sometimes. For instance, the liberation of our town. Very interesting what he found out. I never knew any of the details. I mean, he found out it was the 3rd Battalion of the 26th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division. Same guys who landed on D-Day on Omaha.
Wow.
And then he came across this picture of a captain standing in the middle of our town in front of a house that still exists today. Is still the same. And the guy is holding a little girl. And this is on the moment of the liberation. You can see people running around behind him. And he's holding this girl. We know the name of the girl, but we didn't know the name of the captain. And then we're like, how are we gonna go about finding his name, And then someday last summer, I had this idea, because near Henri Chapelle, there is this column, just like the same type of column that's on Omaha Beach by Widerstandsnest 62. If you go by the Colville Cemetery, you go down a little bit, and there's this column with the names of the KIA from the 1st Infantry Division. We have the same column here in Henri Chapelle for the Battle of Aachen and the Hürtgenwald. And so on there, it has 8 names of captains who were killed. So I start researching the captains and just trying to find their pictures. And then all of a sudden, I come across this picture. This guy, he kind of looked, well, it's like 90%. That's him.
Yeah.
And so you dig deeper. His name is William Russell, Captain William Russell. He was killed in the Hurtgenwald in November 44. He received 3 Silver Stars. One was on D-Day. And the Distinguished Service Cross in the Hurtgen.
Yeah, the guy was a dude, man. Oh my gosh.
And then I told Shane about it, and he was at the time he was on vacation in Maine, and I told him I shot the pictures to him, asking what do you think, and I didn't tell him all the details, but he said, "Oh yeah, that's probably him," and I didn't tell him that William Russell is from Maine.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Which is where Shane grew up. That's his home state.
Yeah. And then Shane over there on his side, he went researching some more, and he came about more pictures of William Russell. And one picture was in a yearbook of the University of Farmington, Maine, and that's the town where Shane is from.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So this was my next question for you, and you're tapping right into this. Have you had any, what we call, Tony and I call them, cosmic moments where the odds are indescribable, and you make this connection and you feel like you're being put together, to make these connections from beyond, I mean.
Well, one other thing I forgot to mention about Jesse Ellico. When we found out that, when Shane found out that he's buried in Henri-Chapelle, he was killed December 17, 1944. And that was the exact day we were talking about him. When we were in the museum and we're looking at his duffel bag with his name. Yep.
Yeah.
That's amazing stuff.
See, another future episode between us and you and Shane, because we have those experiences. I know you've shared with me some other ones that we haven't had a chance to talk about where that's happened as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. And sometimes when you guys explain certain things like coincidences.
Yeah.
It's similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. It happens when you dig deeper.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. I think maybe I think it may have been you or Shane that said this when we were together, that sometimes we don't find these stories, they find us.
They find us.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
It's like when I found one soldier, right? One World War I soldier, and when I found him, it was also a coincidence. Yep.
Yeah.
And it basically how it happened. We were gonna scan an area for unexploded ordnance, and before the scan, we were gonna remove the upper 20 centimeter of the soil because it's so polluted with metal. There's shell fragments, there's all kinds of scrap metal everywhere. So you want to get rid of that before you do your scan, because otherwise it'll obscure the view, the results. And so I was there when they were removing the upper 20 centimeter just to make sure nothing comes up, And so when they were done, I saw like a piece of scrap metal, like a sheet metal that was at the surface. And I told my excavator machinist, why don't you just scrape that thing away, because it'll interfere with the data. While he scraped the thing away, bones came up. That's how he found the soldier. Yeah.
So you were at a place where you could find an MIA soldier from World War I. And then were you able to identify him, or at least put him someplace to be interned properly? How does that get handled?
Well, what the normal procedure, if you find human remains, is you call the police. But this is in World War I battlefield, and I mean, He had 2 leather pouches on him with the bullets for the Lebel rifle, which is a French rifle. They were like neatly stacked in the pouches, so we knew this is World War I soldier for sure. Anyways, you have to call the police. Two very young policemen came out. I mean, they were like freshly out of school. You know, they had their hair done with gel, and they're wearing bulletproof vest and a taser and a big pistol and handcuffs and everything. You know, like this, like 22-year-olds or something like that. You know,
Yep.
and they were wearing perfume and everything. You know, and and, uh, and so they come on side and they look. Bones. Okay. And they shout out to the machinist, why don't you just dig everything out and we'll throw everything in the bag? And I'm like,
whoa.
And so luckily, so the guy starts digging. Luckily, he's really careful. He took off like 1 centimeter. And when he did that, the actual ribs of the soldier came out.
Oh.
And I went up to those 2 policemen and I said, this is not the way we're going to do this. We're going to do this differently, with respect. You don't do it like that. And they had to listen to me and they backed down. And then we called the archaeologist. And there's one archaeologist. This is a guy you should interview. He's a guy who specialized in soldiers from World War I. And he came out and they dug up the soldier like with almost like with toothbrushes and stuff, you know. And turns out the guy was laying in a trench. You could tell from the color of the soil that it was a trench. He had no shoes, and by his feet, some 20 or 30 spent cartridges of the Lebel rifle, so the same that he had on him in his pouch, around his feet. So he was firing his gun in a trench where he's standing, and he got hit by something really big because from here everything was gone.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Yep. And then the archaeologists, they found on him a copper box. I seen the box. And then they had to investigate what it was, and the archaeologists really, they investigated all the details, and it took them about 4 years to publish the report, and it got published, it got released, I believe in April of this year, and I immediately downloaded it and I read it. It's like 30 pages with all the pictures and all the details. Turns out this guy was a tirailleur Sénégalais, so he's a Senegalese soldier fighting for the French. And the archaeologists, they actually found a picture of the tirailleur Sénégalais standing in a village nearby, in the village square, and some of them have no shoes on. So these guys, they fought barefoot.
Oh my Lord. We just did a little episode on the French colonial troops in World War II. The same tirailleurs. I can't say it the French way that you do. It's
tirailleur. So it's tirailleur is somebody who shoots guns, basically.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, man, I'll tell you what. I mean, Ryan and I in the energy sector, and we love what we do. But I'd much rather be doing what you're doing.
I would read too.
What we're doing right now.
I would give up what I'm doing now and move over there and do that stuff.
Well, and I know you said it's cold and mucky and all that.
I don't care. I don't care.
I'll take one experience like you just described per year, and it would pay for the other 364 days where it was cold and crappy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I never talk about the days we find nothing.
Yeah, I know, but it's like fishing, right? It's still you still go
that
out.
Makes it exciting. That makes it exciting, though.
Yeah, it kind of is like hunting or fishing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So what we have here is this Trappist beer that you gave to me, and you said make sure you get one to Ryan, and this is tangible proof that I did not drink both these beers. I actually honored your wishes. Could you tell our audience a little bit about this Trappist beer and why we should savor it so?
Well, there's about 10 or 11 Trappists in the world. And these are monks that live in a community, and they brew the beer to
Keep
live.
speaking, my friend. I'm doing the pour while you're giving us a history lesson.
So they brew the beer to live. They don't brew the beer to make lots of money. But it's like a secret recipe. And these guys, some of the other Trappist monks, they sell their beer in like regular stores. These guys, you can only buy it at the abbey itself. And they made it like such a painful process that almost nobody goes there. You have to go on their website on a certain time, and like you get 1 hour to, you know, arrange for a pickup, because you have to go there in person to their abbey. They need to have your license plate, and you can buy only 2 crates at a time. You know, it's like it's hyped.
Yep.
But besides that, it's really good. I think it's really good. It's nearing perfection. It's also very strong.
All right.
So,
well,
a toast.
A toast.
Wait a minute. What time is it over there?
It is 12:04 p.m. where we are. It is lunchtime.
Then you can do it.
All right.
we always say over here, we say if it's after 11 a.m., it's okay.
Okay.
All right.
We are
good.
So it's official on 2 different continents in several different time zones. This is a toast to our friend Berten for everything you've shared with us, for being the dude that you are. And we're looking forward to hearing more of your stories on future episodes, and
more adventures with you,
and
too.
more adventures. Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's go and take a taste of this, see what it tastes like. And Warrior Next Door listeners, it tasted really good. Nice and buttery smooth and creamy and malty. The monks can really make beer. So we really hope you enjoyed this Air Raid edition with Berten. There's going to be a lot more to come, not only from some of his experiences out in the field in Belgium, associated with his job and his passions for history, but also with some of the tours that he took us on. So look forward to more content from our friend across the Atlantic sometime soon. Take care.